about 2% to continue funding the asylum seekers. Now, you say there's no asylum seekers in any hotel rooms in Niagara Falls. Where are they? The mayor of Toronto says she may have to raise property taxes by 2% to raise the amount of money that is still needed to respond to the economic impact of the hotel rooms.
Canada's facing a situation most people aren't even aware of, and it's affecting everyday Canadians more than you might think. Imagine this. Some of the prime hotel rooms in Niagara Falls, the ones tourists rely on year after year, were suddenly taken off the market for over a year. Local restaurants, tour operators, and attractions lost income. Employees faced uncertainty, and the entire tourism industry felt the economic shock. Small communities like Niagara Falls weren't just inconvenienced, they were impacted financially, and the effects are still being felt today. At the same time, the federal government spent billions of dollars to house asylum seekers across Canada. But here's the big question. Who is really paying the price for these decisions? And even more concerning, could moves like this quietly change the future of Canada without most of us even noticing? By the end of this video, you're going to see exactly how these policies affect tourism, local jobs, municipal budgets, and maybe even your own wallet. Stick around. What comes next might surprise you, and it's something every Canadian needs to know.
The federal government spent $1 billion on hotel rooms for asylum seekers and had to give the Niagara region a total of about just under $565,000. What was the reasoning, and was there an opportunity cost analysis to suggest that it was okay to take 1,406 prime hotel rooms off the market in Niagara Falls for 18 months?
So thank you for that. We knew at the time there were pressures with provinces, particularly in Ontario and Quebec, and municipalities. And so the federal government stepped up at that time and gave money to municipalities in your case to help them with that. What I could tell you is there's no one in hotel rooms anymore. Everyone has been moved outside. There's no hotel rooms being used anymore.
Sorry, Manager, I'll get to that in a second. But the mayor of Niagara Falls and I had a chat about this, and he said when a tourist comes to the Niagara area, they need a room, and the impact on the food in the restaurants and the events and the tourist attractions, even booking a simple tour of the falls, those are the major sectors in Niagara. We rely on tourism for economic success. In your analysis of this after the fact, have you done any impact analysis on what the negative impact on our regional GDP may have been as a result of taking 14 of the most prime location rooms out of the capacity of the city of Niagara Falls to market these rooms?
Again, I can't right now confirm or deny your specific facts because I don't know the specific facts of Niagara right with me. What I do know is there's no one in any hotel rooms anymore. That I know.
Again, Minister.
The Niagara Falls Hotel controversy. This section explains how the federal government's decision to use prime hotel rooms for asylum seekers affected local tourism, businesses, and the economy in Niagara Falls. The scale of the decision. The federal government spent over $1 billion on hotel rooms for asylum seekers across Canada, including some of the most prime locations in Niagara Falls. 14 high-demand hotel rooms were removed from the tourism market for 18 months, leaving local businesses scrambling. Tourism in Niagara Falls is not just a leisure activity. It is a major economic driver, supporting restaurants, tours, events, and employment for thousands of Canadians. The impact on the regional GDP was significant, and yet, there seems to have been little analysis on the cost versus the benefit before this decision. Key points. Need to understand. 1. 14. Prime hotel rooms taken off the market for 18 months. 2. Niagara Falls relies heavily on tourism. Local businesses and jobs were affected. 3. Lack of clear opportunity, cost analysis before making the decision. Impact on local communities. For communities like Niagara Falls, even a temporary disruption in tourism can ripple across the economy. Hotels not only provide rooms, they support restaurants, transportation, souvenir shops, and local attractions. When prime rooms are unavailable, tourists might cancel trips or choose alternative destinations, reducing revenue for small businesses. Canadians working in these sectors faced uncertainty, layoffs, and income loss. Key points. Need to understand. 1. Ripple effect on local businesses and employees. 2. Tourism-dependent communities are highly vulnerable to sudden policy changes. 3. Canadian workers and families experience direct economic impact. What is the government's response? According to federal officials, the decision was made to support municipalities under pressure, particularly in Ontario and Quebec. Funding was provided to help municipalities accommodate asylum seekers. While this may have alleviated short-term housing pressures, the long-term consequences on tourism and local economies were not fully addressed. Canadians are left questioning whether the cost of government spending was worth the economic disruption to communities like Niagara Falls. Key points. Need to understand. 1. Federal government aimed to support municipalities and asylum seekers. Munter 2. Short-term housing needs were prioritized over economic impact. 3. Many Canadians question the trade-off between social support and local economic health. Why Canadians should care. This isn't just a Niagara Falls problem. It's a reflection of how federal decisions can affect everyday Canadians. When prime economic assets are redirected, local jobs, revenue, and community stability are impacted. Canadians across the country need to understand the real consequences of such decisions, from tourism towns to urban centers, and consider the balance between supporting asylum seekers and protecting local economies. Key points. Need to understand. 1. Local policy decisions can have national economic implications. 2. Canadians directly affected through jobs, local businesses, and community stability. 3. Raises questions about government priorities and accountability. But this is only the beginning. While Niagara Falls faced immediate economic disruption, what about larger cities like Toronto? How are Canadians in urban centers feeling the impact? And what does this mean for your taxes, communities, and local jobs? Stay tuned.
I'm sorry, I have limited time, but that's really not the point. The point is, Niagara Falls is only 85,000 people. You took the largest inventory of prime hotel rooms out of the tourism market for a year and a half. People lost their jobs. Tourism industries lost money. It had a huge impact, and I'm just curious as to how anybody could want to have such an impact on an important community like Niagara Falls, to take 1,400 rooms all along the cataract out of the mix, out of the market for 18 months.
So again, I will go back. There were significant volumes. A shelter needed to be found. The federal government provided funding to those municipalities in order to do what it needs to do.
Okay. So, Minister, Mayor Olivia Chow in Toronto said she's going to have to raise property taxes in Toronto by about 2% to continue funding the asylum seekers. Now, you say there's no asylum seekers in any hotel rooms in Niagara Falls. Where are they?
Urban impact and costs for Canadians. This section explains how major Canadian cities like Toronto were affected when resources and hotel rooms were redirected to asylum seekers. When prime hotel rooms and municipal resources were used to house asylum seekers, local urban economies felt the immediate impact. In Toronto, hotel occupancy rates dropped, affecting restaurants, event venues, and other tourism-dependent businesses. Employees in the hospitality and service sectors faced reduced hours or even temporary job losses. For communities that rely heavily on tourism and commercial activity, even short-term disruptions can ripple across multiple industries, affecting thousands of Canadians. Key points. Need to understand. One, hotel and accommodation shortages reduce tourism and hospitality revenue. 2, employees in service industries face reduced hours or job instability. 3, small businesses lose customers and income, impacting local economies. Rising costs for Canadians. This section highlights the financial burden on taxpayers and local residents caused by government spending and support for asylum seekers. Mayor Olivia Chow of Toronto warned that property taxes may need to increase to support housing and services for asylum seekers. Even with federal funding, municipalities still face gaps in their budgets, which can affect community services and infrastructure. Everyday Canadians, homeowners, renters, and local business owners can feel these effects directly or indirectly. These rising costs spark concerns about accountability and whether better planning could have reduced the financial burden on Canadian residents. Key points. Need to understand. 1. Property taxes may increase to cover asylum seeker support. 2. Federal funding does not always cover all municipal costs. 3. Canadians indirectly pay for policy decisions affecting their communities. While cities manage rising costs and economic pressure, what about Canadians living and working alongside asylum seekers? How are communities adjusting? And what are the long-term implications for housing, jobs, and social integration? The next part reveals how these decisions affect Canadians at the community level.
They've all moved to accommodations. Again, some of the asylums are people that are working. They're going or going to school with work permits. Some of the asylum that you're talking about, these are people that are working in your communities as well. So it depends, and those that don't have valid claims to stay will be obviously asked to leave or deported. But those that do will be protected persons and will have work permits. Again, I go back. Premier Ford was pretty loud a few months ago there. He wanted to do his own provincial to give work permits. I could tell you the IRCC gives work permits for those that need to work after, obviously, they ensure there's no criminality and they do, get the medical test. So there's people that are also working and they're living in communities.
Okay, thank you for that. But they're living in communities, but the mayor of Toronto says she may have to raise property taxes by 2% to raise the amount of money that is still needed to respond to the economic impact of the hotel rooms that were taken off the market in Toronto. Similarly, in Niagara Falls, how do we recover from that economic impact, from that negative economic
15 seconds.
impact?
So funding in the beginning did focus on short-term housing. That is no longer the case. There is no short-term housing. It's now all long-term housing. I'll give you the municipality of Peel as a great example where they built.
Thank you so much, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Davies.
Integration of asylum seekers into communities. This section explains how asylum seekers are living and working within Canadian communities and what this means for local residents. Asylum seekers are no longer primarily staying in short-term hotel rooms. They have moved into longer-term accommodations across Canada. Many are working, attending school, and participating in local communities under valid work permits. While this integration helps them contribute economically, it also raises questions for Canadians about how resources are shared and how local communities adapt. Key points. Need to understand. 1. Asylum seekers live and work in Canadian communities under proper permits. 2. Integration supports local economies but requires community adaptation. 3. Canadians witness both benefits and challenges in social and municipal systems. Long-term housing and employment impacts. This section highlights how the shift from short-term to long-term housing affects municipalities, housing availability, and the Canadian workforce. Municipalities initially focused on short-term solutions to house asylum seekers, but now long-term housing has become the norm. This shift can strain local housing markets, sometimes limiting availability for Canadians in need of rental units. Employment patterns are also affected. Some sectors benefit from additional labor, while others face pressure as resources are stretched. Key points. Need to understand. 1. Long-term housing for asylum seekers can strain local rental markets. 2. Canadian workers may see shifts in job availability and economic opportunities. 3. Municipalities must balance newcomer needs with local housing and employment stability. Economic and social consequences for Canadians. This section explains the broader impact on Canadian taxpayers, local businesses, and communities as federal decisions affect daily life. Canadian communities feel both financial and social consequences. Property taxes may increase, municipal services face higher demand, and local businesses adjust to changes in consumer flow. While asylum seekers contribute to the economy, Canadians naturally question whether the balance between support and economic stability is being maintained. Understanding these consequences helps Canadians see the direct connection between federal policy decisions and their own lives. Key points. Need to understand. 1. Increased municipal costs can impact property taxes and public services. 2. Local businesses and communities adapt to economic and social changes. 3. Canadians need awareness of how federal policies influence daily life and community stability. As asylum seekers settle and communities adjust, the question remains, how do these decisions ultimately affect Canadians' jobs, housing, and local economies? Understanding the full picture is key to seeing the real impact on everyday life. In this video, we explored how Canada's federal decisions, like using prime hotel rooms for asylum seekers, have had a real impact on communities, from Niagara Falls to major cities like Toronto. We saw how tourism, local businesses, jobs, and municipal budgets were affected, and how Canadians across the country are feeling the economic and social consequences. From short-term housing pressures to long-term integration and employment challenges, these policies touch everyday life in ways many might not realize. Understanding these effects is crucial for Canadians who want to see the full picture of how federal actions influence local economies, communities, and even property taxes. If you found this video insightful and want to stay updated on how these issues continue to affect Canada and Canadians, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an important update.